as we're getting ready for lunch, one of the things, herbs are gentler than pharmaceutical drugs. You know, an herb, a plant is a complex thing. There are lots and lots of compounds in there. And there's fiber, there's chlorophyll, there's stuff that's like we would consider more nutritious. There is stuff we would consider not medicinally active. And this is, in a way, one of the benefits of working with plants is that there's more buffering. It's not so concentrated, and so that's why you're less likely to have big side effects or reactions. That's also why if you're really, really, really in trouble and you have sepsis, you want antibiotics, and you don't want diffuse or sort of more dilute kind of plant products. You want that like no joke, really clear dosage antibiotic. The other thing that plants do is, they provide the foundation for our diets, and they're nourishing, and they're full of just healthy stuff that we should be eating. And that's true not just for the food that we're going to eat later, but also for some herbal remedies that we could make. So this is one of my favorite nourishing remedies to introduce people to. It's called stinging nettle infusions. Anybody heard of stinging nettles before, or nettle infusions? Nora's nodding. What do you know?
I got some on my hand.
Oh, you did? Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that they were stinging nettles. I'm not sure, I'm not a horticulturist or anything, but I didn't grow up with them. And when I spent a summer in the Pacific Northwest, I accidentally, and they were stinging.
Yes. The botanical name includes urtica, which is like urticaria, so even the fact that that the name itself involves like, oh, it's gonna prickle you. The great thing about nettles is that while they have this kind of like, oh, like don't touch me, like let me be, they have this kind of strength and ability to like dig in and establish themselves. There were probably a lot of them there when you were trying to pull them out. They also are really, really concentrated sources of calcium, vitamin A, lots and lots of other phytochemicals and things that are great for us. And sometimes it's hard to eat as many greens during the course of a day as might be good for us. And it's also not really that efficient to juice greens. I know that's like a really big trend now. You end up throwing away so much good stuff. But you can get a lot of this nutrition in a very easy to absorb way without like filling your tummy with like a huge amount of fiber by making an infusion from a dried plant. And nettles are great for this. So in order to make an infusion, you're gonna take about a heaping cup. We would normally measure this as an ounce by weight, but in the book I'm just using cups to keep things easy because most people don't have scales in their kitchen, even though it's a great idea and you should totally get one. So it looks like about this. And you want to use a mason jar because if you are pouring boiling water into something, you need a heat-safe glass. I learned that the hard way many, many, many years ago, so don't be silly like me and make that mistake. Just use a mason jar. And what then you do is, if you were making tea, it's much the same procedure. The hot water is the solvent that's extracting all that good stuff out of the plant material. But when you make tea, you use a tiny little bit of herbs, and you only leave it in the cup for maybe 10 to 15 minutes. And so you get this very light, pleasant, nice, aromatic, still great for you, but it's not food. It's not like nutrition. It's not actually pulling lots of the minerals and the kind of the more nourishing compounds out of the plant. So to make the infusion, you're going to pour the hot water in here, and you're going to let this steep for at least 4 hours or up to overnight. So this is what it looks like after doing that. It looks like coffee. And this steeped overnight, but 4 hours is enough. And if you're using nourishing infusions regularly, the great thing to do is just kind of before you go to bed, pour the hot water in, give it a little quick stir with a knife, let it sit until the morning, strain it out, and then over the course of the day, drink your mason jar worth of infusion, and you will get so much nutrition from this. This is really great. It's both kind of mildly cooling, so this is great for people who have heat signs, which would be like tendency for your skin to get red, tendency to feel overheated, having a loud voice. Like I'm a little more of a hot-natured person, so like a louder voice, a little bit more outgoing kind of personality. But it's also just very, very gentle and safe for almost everybody. And kids sometimes will even drink it. So we're gonna go ahead and pass this around. Okay, how are we doing with the nettles?
I like it.
You like it?
Mm-hmm. It tastes like green tea. Yeah, it tastes like iced tea with a little bit of a green. Yeah. Green in there.
Interesting. Okay.
It's refreshing.
Okay.
I do think it is refreshing.
So are you getting a little bit of an astringent? Is that what's making you say it's like green tea?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's not in a. I like it. I like the taste of it.
Yeah.
I'll have a contrasting opinion.
Uh-huh.
I could use a little sugar, I think,
Uh-huh.
which just probably defeats the purpose. But and it could be that I'm maybe shaped a little too much by the juice trend, but I'm used to there being like apple juice or pineapple juice or something in like the like green, so I'm a little maybe spoiled.
Yeah.
So this is like it is really tasty, but it's I think like green tea is a better comparison. Like framing it as a tea instead of a juice. Maybe my
Oh yeah, it's definitely
Yeah.
not going to compete with
Yeah.
juice in terms of sweetness. But I'm glad you mentioned that because there are some ways to get yourself to kind of like infusions a little more if you're just getting used to them.
Yeah.
So I think that going in a more savory direction actually works better, like thinking of it more like a broth and less like a juice. So I really like stirring a little bit of miso paste in and then serving it warm and like as like a sippable broth is really good. Or even just like a couple pinches of sea salt in the whole thing. The salty flavor we would say is kind of downward moving in Chinese medicine. It's heavy, like minerals are heavy, and that can be really helpful if part of the reason why you're drinking the nettle infusion is like if you're feeling kind of fried and like you need to kind of calm your nerves and get strengthen yourself. It's very rich in magnesium, which is helpful for relaxation. So a little bit of saltiness in there can both help with the taste and also reinforce those actions. Similarly, you could also go with like some lemon juice or a little bit of lemon zest and lemon juice, kind of freshen it up. And there's no herbal medicine police that's going to tell you can't put some fresh pineapple juice or whatever in there and mix it up if you want to do that. Anyone else? Thoughts, reactions?
Is this the kind of drink that you do like more for the menopause?
Good question. Oh, but you guys are so good. It's like I gave you these things in advance. So I would not use stinging nettle itself specifically for menopause, but there's another recipe in the book for the same preparation, so an infusion made the same way with a different plant called red clover, which is also very mild tasting and gentle, but red clover is very high in phytoestrogens, which have gotten a lot of press lately because there are like people who are like, oh, men shouldn't eat soy, it's going to turn them into women because of the phytoestrogen. Well, it's not true. They're very weak compounds that are similarly shaped to human estrogen, and so they can occupy the same receptor sites in our body that, when we go through menopause, it's like those receptor sites that are used to estrogen are crying out like, what's going on? Why? And what plant-based estrogens can do, well, they're not really estrogens, phytoestrogens, they can occupy those same receptor sites and kind of like stretch your own supply of estrogen. And so I would definitely recommend red clover infusion regularly for women who are going through menopause and need some support for that. The only time maybe not to do it is if you have a history of estrogen-dependent cancer, and you've been told that that's part of the picture. the evidence is not clear as to whether or not plant-based estrogens may or may not be safe in that case. So I always take the most cautious approach, even though sometimes I feel like I don't want to make people scared that this is bad, but I always think it's best to err on the side of caution. But yeah, for most people, red clover infusions would be great to include for that.